See that movie, yeah? Yeah, that movie was cold. Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Sly, and today we're gonna be discussing. That's it.
What, we some kind of suicide squad?
This is a non-spoiler discussion, so if you haven't seen the film, I will not be spoiling anything. Off the bat, I want to say this film was very, very good, very entertaining, and it was one of the better DCEU entries. And to be honest, right, it is one of the better comic book movies in general. It's way better than the first Suicide Squad, and I'm still team release the haircut. I really want to see that, but in terms of the film we actually got, yeah, this one is far superior. I think this movie benefited hugely from its R rating, and it allowed it to take like this new and fresh style on a genre that's kind of getting a bit stale. Like all these comic book movies just getting a bit too similar, but this one is like completely different. And like when I say they use this R rating, bro, there was so much blood, there was so much gore, there was limbs being torn off, heads being cut off, intestines there, insides out, brains everywhere. And it's like, yo, there were so many deaths. So many deaths. The promotion said, yeah, don't get too attached to anyone. And this movie was literally the definition of anyone could get it. I didn't know who was going to survive. Bodies were dropping left, right, and center. I didn't know when anyone was going to go. And they set this basically from the opening scene. And when you see the opening scene, you just know, okay, cool. This is what they're doing. And what it does, it adds to the film in two ways, right? And one way is that it adds a base level of tension that's just continuous and constant throughout the whole film, because you're not sure how it's going to end. You're not sure who's going to survive. You're not sure whether you should start liking a character because, you know, the next scene they might get their heads blown off. And then the other aspect it adds in was it plays well into the whole nature of the Suicide Squad. The actual team is called Task Force X, we know that. But they're called the Suicide Squad because they're kind of dispensable, right? And because there were so many deaths and no one was essentially safe, you generally start to believe the whole point of this team. And you generally start to believe, okay, cool, this is the purpose they're meant to be serving. Bro, I'm there thinking, I don't know if you're even going to get to see the rest of the film because the cameraman could get it. Anyone. Now, one of the biggest things I personally love about this movie, right, is the range of tones it has and how it just seamlessly blends that all in to create this like final product that feels so complete and it feels so whole. So you know me, right? When these movies come out, I don't really like the comedy aspect of it, especially the way the MCU does it with a lot of quips, a lot of dumb jokes. They're not placed very well. And sometimes they just take the tension out of certain scenarios and just make us realize the stakes ain't really high. This movie now, even with all the jokes and the comedy, the tension, the stakes were so high. And what it did, right? When there was comedy, there was comedy. But if the film wanted to get serious, it got serious. If the film wanted to get emotional, it got emotional. If the film wanted to get real, it got real. And any comedy it had, it played into the R rating because the comedy fit what was going on. It still fit the overarching tone. I feel like that humor there, perfect. It was dark. Some stuff you shouldn't be laughing at, but it was funny. And it made for a film that was quite dark, like I said, gory, brutal, but wacky at the same time. Like, you know, the villain, one of the villains is Starro. And Starro, when you look at Starro, you're thinking, okay, he's a type of character that could only really exist in like a comic book, maybe even a cartoon, because it's kind of a bizarre concept, right? But it works. I don't know how James Gunn done it, but it works so well in this. The action in this film was wicked. Like everyone sort of brought a different dynamic to the team in terms of their personality as well, yeah, which we'll get onto, but in terms of their abilities and the kind of stuff they can do within a team, right? And say, for example, Idris Elba's Bloodsport and John Cena's Peacemaker are quite similar in terms of their abilities, right? So they acknowledge that and they use that in an action scene, and it's just like they're sort of competing against each other, trying to get one up. And it's brilliant. It's so cold and it's so different. And like I said, this R rating lends itself because you get different choreography, because you're free to stab someone out. You're free to blow man's head off or snap man's arm and literally show it. You're free to bash man's head into there's nothing left on his face. I'm sounding like a psycho. That's not the case. Of course, this time round, even though there were some recurring characters from the original Suicide Squad movie in 2016, such as Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag, and Viola Davis as Amanda Waller nearly lost that, right? All of these new characters fit so well and add so much to the movie that they all feel unique. They all feel like they have purpose and they all feel like they contribute something to this team where if you take one out, it kind of changes the dynamic. You know what I mean? Like no one felt less important. And going on the characters we've already seen, right? Amanda Waller, oh my days. Like I watched Suicide Squad the other day and she's crazy. But in this one, there's a particular scene where I deeped it and I was like, this woman is mad. Like, I want to see her go up against Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, Batman, because he's more like a brutish type, break your body, kind of kill you type of Batman. And she is a no nonsense. I'll do anything for my country. I will get people to act beyond their will. And I feel like that dynamic going one up against each other, crazy. And like, I really like Colonel Flagg's character in this one. And I really like him in general, right? Because he started off seeing these villains as villains, scum of the earth. He was just there for the mission. But slowly over time, he started to respect them and he started to essentially become one of the team. So when you come to this Suicide Squad movie, his character's changed in a sense where he hasn't got like weird dialogue and he's not talking stupid, but he fits part of this team. And at one point I was thinking, this guy ain't even a villain, but he's so well integrated into the Suicide Squad. It's like he may as well be. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, she's good as usual, crazy, psycho, that has so much depth to her as well. I think Margot Robbie is a perfect cast for Harley Quinn. Of course, we haven't really seen another Harley Quinn, so it's kind of like by default. She technically is the character, it's hers. She might as well take the role home. But some of the new characters, Idris Elba's Bloodsport is probably one of my favorites. Uncle Idris, of course. And he's basically taken over from Deadshot in a sense where they're kind of like the lead or the main focus. And he also has a relationship with his daughter, right? But it's completely different. Completely different. Like this isn't like, oh, a swap thing. Bloodsport is his own character, completely new, with his own flaws, with his own personality. And I feel like he was quite charming, considering these guys are villains. They just work so well together. Ratcatcher and is it Polka Dot Man? They are interesting. They are interesting. Polka Dot Man is very interesting, considering his power is very strong. They're just interesting. You look at villains like that, and you're thinking these men are just stupid. But I was pleasantly surprised, especially Ratcatcher 2. She gets a lot more shine. All of them get some sort of shine, some sort of comeuppance, some sort of way to be glorious. But Ratcatcher 2 is very integral to the heart of this movie and more of the emotional moments. And really, as time went on, I started to grow into the character and like her much more. John Cena's Peacemaker. I heard they're doing a little spin-off. I'm sold. I want to watch it. That man is crazy. John Cena, yeah. I know wrestlers more time when they come from wrestling to acting. Their career is not always great. They're not always like the best of actors. John Cena done a wicked job. He done a wicked job. Peacemaker was funny. His action scenes were cool. He was crazy. And the film kind of explored his character in a sense that you realize he's quite a complex man. And some of the morals he has, you're questioning and thinking, the story in itself is quite self-contained, where it's just a typical Task Force X type of mission. You know, off the books, under the radar, kind of covert ops, sneak into this place and do this. Very similar, very normal to what we've seen before. Nothing like breaking the mold, but it's more about the execution and the ride you go along with these characters. Like I said, with the tone, where even the way some of this movie is structured, right? The way they introduce different parts of the movie, or you know, a different segment, a different act, is so much like a comic book. It feels like it's literally come at the page. Like this feels like a realistic story or mission the Suicide Squad would go on. And that's probably one of the biggest praise I'll give it. It really feels close to a comic book, a graphic novel, a dark 18 R-rated graphic novel, comic book, whatever. There is no holding back. And like I said, yeah, the story at some points can get wacky, but James Gunn he done his job in it. Like I'm hoping now studios will see that maybe we should give these directors a bit more freedom, because I mean, look at Zack Snyder's Justice League. Personally, one of the best comic book movies there is. Severe improvement over Joss Whedon's monstrosity. Look at the haircut. I mean, we ain't seen the haircut, but what the Suicide Squad is, where the studio had intervention, dead. So dead that they're obviously having these campaigns to release the haircut. So I'm hoping they now see that, You know, give some of these directors the creative freedom to do what they want to do, man. Especially if, as a studio, you're trying to craft a universe or craft your own style of version. You know, Marvel's done what Marvel have done. You don't need to copy. You need to forge your own path, make your own stuff. And DC, they have it. You know, with the DC Black Label, say like the Joker movie, they have it. Keep going. Let directors do what directors do, because this film felt like it had a vision. It felt unique because it was unique. No one else is in the same in the mind of James Gunn. Obviously, now before I end the video, I want to say some stuff maybe I didn't particularly like, or maybe stuff to look out for. Because there are a lot of jokes, some of them don't land. A lot of them don't land. I think it depends on the type of person you are, because you know humor's kind of subjective. And there were some moments where they tried to get, I wouldn't say emotional, but they tried to flesh out some characters. And I feel like maybe they could have done it a little bit better. And I feel like because they did kill off a lot of characters, some characters were kind of underutilized, right? Some of them I was a bit underwhelmed by, in a point where I was thinking maybe they would offer a little bit more, do a little bit more. For the most part, even though it's a negative, it's not that much of a negative. But bro, on a whole, this film was cold. Definitely one of the better comic book movies. 100% recommend that. If you didn't really like DC before, or you kind of are bored with their movies slightly like me, this one will get you back into it, I must admit. Suicide Squad, I really do want to go back just for the ride, you know, just for the jokes, just for the tone, just for the scene, just for everything. I'm going to give Suicide Squad, on my first viewing, obviously I've seen it once, maybe it'll change later, I'm going to give it an 8. Yo, if you man haven't seen that film, I would highly recommend it. Great film. It's been your boy Sly, and we out.